Hey, what's up? I want to talk about bar chords. They're hard for people, and basically what happens is you get comfortable playing all your open chords, and then the next step, all of a sudden you see some chord and you don't understand what it is, and it's typically going to be something that's a bar chord. Like for instance, you see something that says like a B, and then a lowercase kind of B-looking symbol. What is that? We haven't seen that yet. So the lowercase b symbol is called flat. And so what that means is if I was playing a B note right here, B and then the lowercase b, B flat, is just a half step lower. Okay? The number sign is called sharp. And that's kind of like the opposite. If I was playing a G note, which is the third fret on the low E string, to play a G and then the number sign note, G sharp, it's a half step higher. And in music, there's two spots where there's no sharp or flat in between them. And you'd see the same thing on a piano, the white keys on the piano. There's two spots where there's no black key. And it's the same thing on the guitar. It's B up to C, which would be like, for instance, on the E string would be the 7 to the 8th fret, B to C, and then also E to F, open E to F. All right, that's important. So then the bar chord concept, there's basically 4 shapes that we want to start with. And also, the better we can locate our notes on the E and the A string, the better we're going to be able to kind of kick butt on the bar chords, okay? So let me show you these open chords, though, that the bar chords are based on as far as the shapes go. We have 2 kinds of E chords that we know right now. One is E major, and one is E minor. So the basic concept of the bar chord is if I took that E major chord, so I have an E major chord and an E minor chord. And if I thought of the concept as the open strings, actually like this starting point here, it's called the nut on the guitar. If we had to pretend that we had to use our finger to press down to get the open strings, that's kind of what I think of as the concept for the bar chord. So if I press this finger down and then I want to play an E major chord, I'd have to use these fingers to do it, ring finger and pinky, and then middle finger. And then I'd imagine that I had to press down here, even though I don't. This is the E chord. Either way, if my finger's down or not, we don't have to do it. But what we're doing with the bar chord is we're just shifting the E chord up. And it moves up letters from E, because it's an E chord. So if I have the E chord, and in music, E to F is only a half step apart. If I took this E shape and moved it a half step apart, I moved it a half step up, these notes have now changed to become an F chord. But the open strings that are part of the chord haven't changed, so it doesn't sound right. So what I have to do is press down really hard right here to give us a new starting point. So it's basically like an E chord, F chord. And then if F to G is a whole step apart, I move the whole chord up a whole step, and it's a G chord. G, if I move up G a whole step, it's an A chord now. So listen to that. That's an A chord? Well, what about this A chord? Well, they're actually the same chord. They can be interchanged with each other. Okay, A to B is a whole step, so here's a B major chord. B to C is only a half step, so I move it up a half step, I have a C major chord. C to D is a whole step, so I move that up a whole step, and I have a D major chord. Okay? So another thing you can do instead of, if, for instance, if I said, okay, play me a C major bar chord with the root on the E string. The best way to do that is to actually just find the root first. This is going to carry over to scales too. So if I said, what did I say? I said a C major chord, C major bar chord with the root on the E string. That means I want to find C on the E string first. So E is open, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B, half step to C. Because B to C is always a half step in music. So there's C. So if I find the root on the E string, then it's got to look like an E chord. And I said C major, so we want it to be E major shape. And now we have a C major bar chord. But check, this is where it comes in handy. If I said a C minor chord, the only way to play a C minor chord is as a bar chord. So what do you think I do? I have found the root on the E string, and it has to be an E shape. So instead of it being an E major shape, if I just take my middle finger off, so now I'm playing the E minor shape, but it's been shifted up to a C, then I have a C minor chord. And so when you're playing this one, I use my middle finger to press against my first finger. So that'd be C minor, or if I add my middle finger, it's C major. So that's all based on the E root. So like, let's say I said a B flat major chord. Well, the first thing we want to do, the process I would go about, especially as a beginner or you're heading into wanting to learn bar chords, was I would find, we're looking for a B flat major chord. I'd find the B note first, E is open, half step to F, whole step to G, whole step to A, whole step to B. And then what did I say? B flat. Which one's flat? Well, if I ran over something and it was left behind, it's been flattened, so it's lower. So B flat. And then what did I say? B flat major. So I found it on the E string, so it's got to look like E major. There's the B flat major chord. If I wanted that to be B flat minor, I just make this shape look like E minor instead of E major. Okay, so that's just the concept for the bar chord. Let's talk about the A root bar chord. It's the same thing, but if I find the root on the A string, it's got to look like an A major or an A minor shape. So if I said B minor on the A string root, so I want to find B on the A string. A is open, whole step to B. A to B is a whole step, so whole step from 0 would be 2. And I said B minor. So if I found the root on the A string, I bar it, and then it's got to look like some kind of A shape. And I said minor, so this has to look like an A. I have to form an A minor chord with my fingers, and it's going to look like this. Middle finger on the 3rd fret, and then pinky on the 4th fret, and ring finger on the 4th fret, like this. And then I got to press down here. So you see how that looks like an A minor chord? A minor if I use these fingers. Up a whole step to B minor. Up a half step to C minor, because B to C is always a half step. So there is C minor. Up a whole step to D minor. Whole step to E minor. Half step to F minor. Whole step to G minor. So look, now we have 2 options on chords. By finding the root on the E string, I plug in some kind of E shape, major or minor. If I find the root on the A string, I plug in an A shape, major or minor. So let's look at that major A shape. It's the hardest one, and when you see a B major chord, people run screaming in fear, and I understand. But so what we have to do is, an A major chord looks like, like this, right? If I move it up a whole step, it's become a B, but it needs to be barred too. How do I do that? In books, a lot, it looks like this. These 3 clumped here, and then this barred, and it's pretty difficult. What I do is I take my ring finger, and I just slap it across. I press down on the D, G, and B string. The high E is basically muted, and then I bar it. Now, it's really hard to do, but that's the shape. And what I recommend is if you get to a song where you need it, just play it where it doesn't sound very good. Don't avoid it. Just keep tackling it, and that's the best way to do it.